I want to now draw your attention to a short video that we're going to be showing. Because we are on Zoom, there is a potential that there may be some latency issues. So if you do look into chat, I've already put the link. So if it does get a little sporadic, you can check that out at a later time if you desire. But this video really poses the question, what if? What if there's more, right? What if leading a business was more of your calling than a job? What if you could be a force for positive change in your community? So let's watch this video.
What if there were more? What if leading a business were a calling, not just a job?
Oops, sorry.
What if there were more? What if leading a business were a calling, not just a job? What if turning a profit were more about impacting lives than increasing bank balances? What if your company were a force for positive change beyond its walls? Our cities and our nation are in trouble. Violence and despair make daily headlines. Politics are increasingly polarizing. Family values seem to be eroded beyond repair. And Christian businesses face a heightened resistance. But all across our nation, Christian leaders are learning what it means to build great businesses for a greater purpose. C12 is the nation's largest peer advisory network of Christian business leaders. With a powerful combination of biblical principles and best practices, C12 addresses the specific challenges of Christian business leadership on both practical and spiritual levels, helping leaders transform their business.
Son of a, that's my fault. I'll get it back.
On both practical and spiritual levels, helping leaders transform their businesses beyond time cards and spreadsheets to unleash the gospel in their companies, their communities, and in their lives. Imagine a reception area becomes a statement of mission. A cup of coffee becomes a platform for authenticity. A troubling headline becomes a call to action. An executive becomes available to what matters most. A company becomes a force for change in their community. Imagine the impact of Christian business leaders all across our nation, growing a company with a purpose, driving business results, strengthening families, empowering employees, enriching their communities, transforming their businesses and themselves. Join your peers in C12 and build a great business for a greater purpose.
So today is really an opportunity for us to determine if we want to join our peers, right? Other Christian business leaders to build a great business for a greater purpose. This is just an introduction to that idea, and maybe you've been looking for something like this for years, or to be honest, maybe you're not even sure why you're on this call today. All right, so hopefully the rest of this hour, we're going to answer some of your questions, provide an opportunity for you to hear from people in C12. But I think most importantly, we want you to leave this knowing that C12 isn't just a bunch of really smart people coming together, sharing best practices in business. C12 is about doing that and living out our faith through our businesses, which we were given to steward. So if we can, Ron, let's take a quick look at those results from the poll.
Will do. Just give me 1 second.
And then what that'll do is kind of set up the backdrop for Mike as he comes into his talk. So let me see, I wish I had enough time to focus, time to work on my business, focus time to work on my business. 83% agreed. I would like to find more highly applicable training to become a better leader. 25% strongly agree, 75% agree. Can we scroll down there? Oh, I guess I can. I would like peers to identify my blind spots. Agree and strongly agree. So I want to know how to live a balanced life and improve relationships. 75% agree. So when we see all this, that really gives us an opportunity to say, okay, there's an opportunity for us to do more. So with that, I'd like to introduce Mike Sharrow. Mike joined C12 as a member, like you guys are considering, in 2010. And within a year, he became an associate chair, serving CEOs across the San Antonio market. In 2013, he and a business partner actually acquired Central Texas C12 region and grew it to 8 chairs and served over 150 members in that market. And then in 2016, Mike became the CEO of the C12 group. As we promise in C12, we want to be example of all we promote. So not only is Mike the CEO of C12, but he is also an active member in a C12 group in the San Antonio market. So Mike, we really appreciate the time that you've taken out of your busy schedule to be with us today. And at this point, the Zoom screen is all yours.
Well, hey everybody, it's a joy to get to join you, and I'm going to spare you. I've got a face for radio, so I'm going to use some visuals to help illustrate this conversation this morning. And as Chris alluded, my hope is that whether you're coming in pretty well informed and this is part of kicking tires, or you were loosely invited by somebody and you're curious, I'm hoping that by the end of this, you sense the purpose of God and why he had you here. And that maybe there's even things you hear in this conversation that are part of God connecting dots of desire or frustration or intrigue for you, as it was for me when I first heard about it 10 years ago. So you'll hear us talk a lot about this idea of great business, greater purpose. And as Chris mentioned, I drink the Kool-Aid pretty well. I'm a C12 member, so I drive up to Austin, Texas, and I'm part of a group there. And then I get a chance to lead a small business. Essentially, I run a business in San Antonio that's got 18 employees that then supports a network of missionpreneurs, as we call Chris and Ron, almost 120 of them now around the US, Brazil, and Southeast Asia primarily, who then get to support almost 2,700 leaders like you. And so it's a small business with a lot of kingdom torque, we like to say. So I'd like to unpack kind of what is it, why is it, what's the context of this as you consider whether or not you're a fit for what we're about and how to go visit a national group. So first of all, we're part of a bigger movement of God. God's been doing stuff in the marketplace for a long time. We are just an expression of that. I would argue if you go back in scripture, it goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And even before them, God's been using entrepreneurs and small business owners for thousands of years as agents of his work. But in an era where we've got a lot of, particularly in the West, a post-Christian kind of motif and people growing up less and less exposed or maybe even trusting institutional religion, the power of what happens when we live out the gospel in the marketplace is just underscored. And so back in the 70s, Billy Graham said he believed, hey, that's where one of the next great moves of God is going to be. If there's going to be a wholesale awakening type event like our country's experienced historically, it would likely come out of faithful people in the marketplace. Henry Blackaby said similar things in the 90s. So 3 decades ago, just about, is literally this month, the first week of October in 1992 is the first C12 group started in Florida. There's a group in Tampa and a group down in Sarasota area around this idea of could you merge a intense, high-class business mastermind group? Could you take the best of industry trade association groups and secular peer forums and all that represents from a business excellence perspective, and could you merge it with a biblical worldview and a missional heart? And literally, it was, could you take a peer group and Bible study fellowship and put them in one experience where there'd be no daylight separating our faith and our business pursuits? That was the experiment down in Florida in 1992, and it began to grow. It worked, it replicated, dozens and dozens of leaders joined groups there, and they started trying it in Georgia and other states, and then it began saying, okay, the Carolinas, and then it just kind of spread across the country. And so now we've got groups in about 38 states. And then about 3 years ago, we began this experimentation of would this work in other cultures? And I couldn't even tell you how to quantify my ignorance on would that work or not. but by God's grace, we had groups launch in Asia and in Brazil. And so this past January, we launched in Singapore as well. And literally in the last week, I've been talking to leaders in Cairo, Egypt, South Africa, the Netherlands, UK, Beijing, Hong Kong, and Rwanda about this serving CEOs in those markets. And so it's proving to work and scale regardless of your industry, regardless of your stage of life and business, and seemingly regardless of culture. And our mission, we're essentially an equipping organization. We are here to equip Christian CEOs and business owners like you to really build a great business. We're passionate about building great businesses, but doing it for an eternally significant greater purpose. And what do we mean when we say greater purpose? Because that word can be used fairly generically. Well, we've got a pretty specific idea in mind. See, we have this paradigm that there's a business as a ministry operating system, that every one of us as followers of Jesus, that your business is a ministry. The only question is whether or not it's effective or a good one. And so how do we run a business where every component of that business is truly done to the glory of God? And how do we help our operations and everything we do live out this call we have as followers of Jesus and not have that be situational? And so at the end of the day, we help people understand that and install that in your unique context. And the power of the C12 is this recipe of what happens in a C12 meeting. It's the power of peers. We've got a very consistent model, whether you go see Ron Sieb's group in Southern Indiana, whether you go up and see Chris Wise in Northern Wisconsin, or if you go to Orange County, or we got a group in Southern Maine, or go down to Brazil, while the people at the table would be different. And there'd be dynamics of the way they handle the conversation, the content, the structure, the framework, and the tools to draw out the power of peers in a unique way is consistent. And it really is the game-changing factor for changing the way we lead and the results we get. Now, this has been particularly true in 2020, in a year where there's been dramatic disruption sparked by the pandemic, and then everything else this year has brought. But sometimes it can feel like, as a leader, what I know is fixed, and the expanding universe of what I need to know is just paralyzing, and it's rapidly expanding. And so that can create a problem for us as leaders to go, well, how do you keep up with the expanding realm of best practices and ideas and information and insights of what's working and not? Well, one of the ways to do that is to augment your own knowledge through the power of peers. And so part of the power of a C12 group is to have like-minded peers that are from different industries than you, but share faith. So we share the definition of success and what matters. And we're in a collaborative, sharing, transparent environment to help close the gap between what I know and what I need to know. And we believe that there's no way to separate the business or the ministry side. We believe that for too long, sometimes I was at a conference last week where the Christian music artist Lecrae made the statement that the word Christian is a fantastic noun. Sadly, in the marketplace, it's oftentimes a poor adjective. And that's tragically too true at times. And we'd like to redeem that we should be leading the charge when it comes to business excellence, virtue, beauty, and goodness. And so we want to shatter that perception. And so if you come to a C12 meeting, heads up, we believe in this Buffalo culture. We like to press into issues. We like to deal with things head on. We like to not only answer the questions you may bring to a table, but question the answers that you are assuming about that. And we believe it's serious business. And if we're going to be serious about building a great business, then we've got to look at all the different dimensions to it. So we offer, in the context of a C12 meeting, a lot of different things. So joining a group is not just coming to sit at a table. It's not a discussion group. There's a lot of things that go into being a C12 member. There's the group, which has got learning and tools and all sorts of aspects to it that we've been engineering for almost 30 years to make sure it's high performing in its experience. But we also realize that we need new ideas to close the information gaps. We bring curriculum to the table. We bring seminars, conferences, tools to help leverage peers, both in your group and leveraging the national network. We all as leaders struggle with, okay, you learn, but then how do you do stuff? How do we actually execute to that? So we got all sorts of tools around disciplines of execution to support you in that. And then there is not a cookie cutter solution. Well, we all are going to learn together. It comes down to personalizing us. That's why we got one-on-one coaching and unique benchmarking to your context and a whole bunch of tools to help grow you and your team within the context of where you're at. And then we step back and we look at all those things saying, if we're doing this well, there should be economic value add gains. There should be cultural value add gains. And there should be eternal fruitfulness, what we call spiritual value add, in your life and in the business that you get to steward. And people join C12 and are in it for a long, long time. About 40% of the original groups in Florida are still members. We're actually about to have our 5th generation leader in one of those companies where literally there's been 4 succession rounds, and the newest leader is in C12 to keep running that now 5th generation family business. But the equation is simple. We stay in this constant gymnasium mode around leadership. It's not a hospital. You don't come to C12 get fixed. You join as a fitness club to keep yourself, rehabbed where you need to, but getting stronger and stronger together. And as you do this, it just gradually transforms you and it transforms your business. Now, the beautiful tension of C12 is that we are serious about bringing these oftentimes separate domains into one conversation. This Venn diagram of work as worship, business as ministry, but then also bringing in the life in order. And so how do I balance I'm a child of God, I'm a husband, I'm a father, and Jesus cares about who I am and how I am just as much as what I accomplish. And so we're serious about bringing all those 3 into a coalescing pursuit. And part of the secret, and this may be one of the things that I'd love to challenge your thinking with, is we then look at the idea of being a steward in this business as a ministry pursuit, meaning that we must look at the very culture of our companies and ask, how does the gospel influence that? And then we look at these 5 domains of an eternally balanced scorecard. And every month we are learning best practices around some component of that. We are assessing our current reality against that. And we are pursuing better and better excellence and reforming it or transforming it with the biblical worldview. And we journey on this every year. And so we align our conferences, our content, our learning all around this 5-point alignment matrix. And then within C12, we have this overall business as a ministry, BAM framework. So how do we help each other focus and clarify mission, vision, values? And every year go through an exercise of going, okay, what's most important this year? And as we look at those 5 domains of the business, what are the strategic objectives that we've got to be pursuing? And what are the right goals and KPIs? And how do I actually act upon that and lead my teams to execute to that? Well, we've either got learning or tools or systems that kind of cascade down around those things, and yet allowing it to be adapted and to fit whatever stage of business you're in and whatever industry of business you're in. We've got everything from small family businesses to multi-billion, multinational dollar businesses. The same framework applies. It just begins to change some of the execution tools. So we are all about results. So if you're checking this out, this is not a casual deal. It's why we want to front load this with a chance for you to know what this is, because we want to deliver ROI to you and your stakeholders. You may be a CEO running a business that's owned by others that may not share your faith, and we believe that we should be good stewards for them and they should love the results they see. But we're also measuring things in eternal ROI, both the transformation in you and your family, those you lead, the customers you serve, and the industry and community you're in. So what makes a good C12 member? Well, you've got to be, as Lencioni would say, humble, hungry, smart. You got to be open to learning. You got to want to learn. You got to want to grow. You've got to be growth minded. That's really one of the most key hallmarks of a good C12 member is, do you want to grow, personally growth and grow your business? And then are you open to these Buffalo conversations? Are you open to getting feedback and input that maybe you get nowhere else? Maybe you have nowhere else that's even a safe place to offer and receive this kind of feedback. Well, those things all factor into what we call an ideal C12 member. And it's a serious proposition. We're looking for growth stage companies. So our content is not great for startup. We don't explain how to bootstrap and do initial funding. We're really are focused on how do you grow your business through teams, through people, through strategy, through process. And it is a mutual investment. And so part of what we're going through this whole process to make sure you realize this is a serious deal. This can be a game changer for your life and business. And it's something that you got to put something into. And so there's a 7-hour meeting once a month. It is a retreat away from the business to work on the business, where we do learning, peer counsel, and all the kind of stuff you've heard about and we'll hear more about. And we do that. We ask you to make sure you've got to clear your calendar and guard that day like you would a vacation or a key sales meeting or some other event, and be able to make at least 10 out of those 12 meetings a year. We got a veterinarian out in Eastern North Carolina who didn't miss a single meeting for 14 years and would pay $2,500 a day to hire vets to go run his clinic while he was at his C12 meeting because the business couldn't stop. And so it wasn't just his dues. He was funding people to run the clinics while he was gone. But he went, this is the one thing I can't miss. And so very much in C12, you get out of it what you put into it. There is a financial commitment. You're going to be paying monthly dues. The business would fund this as an investment in your professional development and in the growth of the business. You got this one-on-one with your chair who's going to be helping you personalize and adapt all this stuff into your context. And then you're going to be choosing action items. We're going to learn on a monthly basis. You're going to go, you know what? I'm going to implement that. I'm going to improve that area. I'm going to have that conversation. I'm going to make that intervention. Those are things that requires for you to get the value out of C12. But again, we're about accountability and results. On a monthly basis, you're accountable to the things you said you do. We also tell everyone you come to C12, if you do these things for a year and you get the end of it and go, yeah, these are nice people, smart people, valuable, but it just didn't move the needle for me. We don't want you to stay in. In fact, we'll offer you a refund of your dues if this is not going to deliver the excellence we promised. So it's a serious proposition around changing things. Again, it's this 5-point alignment matrix. Let's go and grow all these dimensions of our business. Let's realize that if God owns everything and I'm a steward, then my success is actually what he says success is in each of these areas. And at the end of the day, that's what our groups are about. Bringing those different worlds of our leadership together, providing a forum where we can learn and grow in these pieces. And when I first found this 10 years ago, I was incredibly cynical, didn't believe this would be real, and joined, and it was transformational for me. And obviously 10 years later, it's still changing my world in a positive way. And so if you qualify and if this resonates with you, I hope you will take up Ron and Chris on the invitation to take the next step of actually seeing a group and seeing if this is part of how God would help change the future of your leadership and your business. So with that, I'm going to hand things back over to Chris and Ron so we can hear from some cooler people than me who can add some local context to this as well.
Well, great. Mike, I just want to thank you so much for that time out of your busy schedule just to be with us and explain a little bit more of that high level of C12. I don't see any questions in the chat right now, but I do want to take maybe just a minute. Does somebody have a question that may have been sparked by something Mike had mentioned? Anybody right now? We'll have some time at the end for Q&A as well, but is there anybody right now? Okay, I don't see any hands going up. I don't see anybody unmuting. So we're going to move forward and actually talk to some other people that are C12 members to give their perspective on this. So like I said, we have two people. So we have Sonia, who's actually in my group in Wisconsin, and we have Jay, who's in Ron's group in Indiana. So let me just do a brief introduction on Sonia, and then we'll ask her a couple questions and open her up for you guys as well. So Sonia is the CEO of the Family Radio Network. Since her time at the Family, the organization has acquired other stations, has seen dramatic technological upgrades, and continues to grow into new markets. The network, affectionately called the biggest family room in Wisconsin, covers most of northeastern Wisconsin and the central part of our state as well. You can check out all of our credentials on LinkedIn, but I just want to say thank you, Sonia, for being here. I appreciate you. If you could unmute. So Sonia, Mike had gone over and described some of the key points of C12 and kind of the C12 peer advisory meeting. Some people may be wondering about that commitment part at the end, and especially that full day a month, that investment. You as a CEO, how do you justify spending a full day every month at a C12 meeting?
Well, I love that question because I was a guest at a C12 meeting and I walked away, fell in love with it, but the two questions that I had was, can I afford this financially, and can I afford the time away from the office, right? Here's a year into C12, and first of all, let's be real, work will still be there tomorrow, right? And we do get breaks in between, so you can check email and text messages and whatnot. But really, the proof is in the pudding. Chris is my chair, so he knows all the details. But for those of you who don't know, we have done so much in the last 12 months. And I clearly remember the first time I sat down, we went through the first month's curriculum, and I walked away and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to work on this. So we carry a lot of what I like to call little strings. Oh yeah, I need to work on that. I know I need to address that. I know I need to focus on that. But what C12 allows me to do is to come back and be focused. And like Mike said, they provide the tools so that I can go back and say, okay, I need to tackle this. And I kid you not, every month, the curriculum, it's pertinent to you, either personally, professionally, or spiritually. And it's really cool for me to watch my C12 members, peers, take the curriculum back to their organizations, and then we talk about what happened and how did that go. So it is so valuable that I unfortunately, due to a loss, death in our family, missed a meeting a couple of months ago. And Chris knows this. And I'm like, Chris, I'm going to be out of state. How can I join the meeting? What can I do? He tried to schedule a call for me, but unfortunately, due to family gatherings, we couldn't manage. But I knew the content was going to be so good. And I was bummed that I was going to miss out. And I treasure the people around the room. I treasure their opinions, and they're so valuable. So the question is not so much, can I afford to miss a day? The question is, the comment that I have is, you cannot afford not to be in C12, to make that investment of time so that you can focus on your business. I guarantee you, as I am seeing in my own network of radio stations, we continue to grow, we continue to be laser focused, and I am so thankful for the curriculum that is so timely every month.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that Sonia. And I know that there's a couple things even early on. You've been a member since August of 2019. There's a couple things that I know that you've implemented that you're like, it was one of those strings, right? But now with the C12 and the resources that we provided, you were able to focus time and energy. Can you share one thing that you've picked up within C12 that has really impacted your leadership at the Family Radio Network?
So I could talk about the curriculum, the one thing in the curriculum, but I actually have a couple things. One is the resources. So there were a couple of situations in my organization that I needed resources. I went to my chair, which happens to be Chris, and I said, here's what's going on. Can you help? And when I reached out to him as, can you help? I wasn't thinking, can C12 help? But his response and the resources that he provided to me were from C12, which turned out to be amazing, life-saving, cost-saving measures and resources. For example, like connecting me through to the Alliance Defending Freedom for a situation that we had going on. PR firms, right? Because we constantly need to be working on that. So that has been valuable. The resources that C12 brings outside of our monthly meetings and outside of our room has been really beneficial. And the thing that I also believe has impacted my leadership is our one-on-one meetings, Chris. There are some things that I just can't talk to my leadership team about. They are aware of certain situations, but I just can't talk to them, or they want to understand. And I could say the same thing of my spouse. Either they're not in the same industry, that's not the forte, or whatnot. So it is lonely at the top sometimes, and you kind of walk through that. But I am so grateful that I have a chair that I feel bad some months. I feel like, oh, there's a lot of stuff going on. And Chris really in that time not only keeps me accountable, but he points me back to, he doesn't solve my problems. He really does not give me the answers to anything, but he'll point back to, hey, remember, I think this is timely. A couple months ago, we went through this curriculum and we talked about that. What are your thoughts on that? So it has been really great to have that one-on-one time, to be able to talk some things through, to be able to work on the business, and then at the same time to be able to give an update on some of the measures that I am working on. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
I could give you examples all day long.
Yeah, you made me blush a little bit, but thank you. I appreciate your heart, right? Because it's the fact that you go to work and you're dealing with so many different things each and every day, but to take that time away and be able to focus, and then like you said, Sonia, just that one-on-one time, right? So you can kind of download a little bit and then be able to receive maybe what God is really speaking to you with. We have another opportunity here. And another member, Jay. So Ron, let me turn this over to you, and you can ask one of your members a couple questions.
Thanks so much. And again, I'm Ron Seib. I chair the C12 territory where Indiana, Illinois, and Kentucky all meet. That's exactly where we are. So we cover the three areas of those three states. And I have today a member, Jay Jacobs. He's a private wealth advisor with Compass Financial Group, which is affiliated with Ameriprise Financial Services. Jay has been with C12 for 3 years, so he outlasts me. I joined this year. So Jay, good morning, and thank you for joining with us.
Absolutely, happy to do it.
So Jay, tell us what C12 has meant for you and the impact it's had on your business and maybe even yourself.
Oh, that's a big question. So kind of like Sonia, when I came to C12, one of the things that I was wrestling with was just almost like that halftime area in life where is this truly what it looks like for the next 25, 30 years? Or, what does recreating my business look like? Or do I change professions altogether and maybe even start up a different business? And, through C12, one of the things that I've learned, and I know all you business owners out there, we don't have any blind spots, right? I thought it was interesting that one of the questions was about blind spots. And I wrote down on my notes, what has it meant to me, C12? The biggest thing has been the identification of blind spots. The hardest part, I think, for a business owner being lonely at the top, or maybe he has some decent partners or that type of thing. But the hardest thing, I think, is finding people that you trust and that are willing to pour into you to give you the truth. And for me, that has been just a journey that's, people will come in and out of your life and you think, wow, that's a great person. But, to ask them to be a truth teller to you on an ongoing basis is kind of a hard thing to do. So when I found C12 through a friend, it was immediate. I mean, I noticed right away that there was going to be an open, honest discussion, that these people around the table took it very, very seriously. It wasn't something that they were doing for fun. As much camaraderie as we have in our group, they're serious about business and helping each other. So for me, the first thing that happened was my faith walk got stronger. I noticed that first, and that's actually why I joined. My reason for joining was I could see that I was going to get a benefit from walking with other Christian business people who, one, understood the situation that I was in, the daily things that I faced, but then also had an eternal perspective. And so that I could trust those men and women to give me the kind of feedback that I could trust. Then when we got into content, I'm a service professional. So some of the manufacturing stuff may not have applied directly, but there's a ministry piece that applied every single month. And we've seen tremendous growth as a business in regards to not just the numbers, but also in regards to as a group. I mean, I could tell you story upon story, and if you ask, maybe I'll tell a couple, but I mean, just lives saved, spirit, faith grown. I would say miracles have happened. I mean, just things that I never thought possible when you just kind of submit it to the Lord and let him run your business. And you just say, hey, I don't know how to steward this part, Lord, I need your help completely. And he'll do it, and he does it through those people sitting around the table. He does it through the chair who does your one-on-ones with you, knows you, gets to know you better. So yeah, that's for me where it's been the biggest.
Great. Thanks, Jay. So Sonia talked about the C12 benefits being worth her time commitment. Could you address the benefits you receive in light of the financial commitment you make?
Well, I don't know that I could answer it any better than her. I kind of feel the same way. I even wrote down, I thought, I don't even, for me, I'm an investment guy. So guess what? I look at it as an investment. And I don't see any other better investment than my time at C12 because the results, they may not come as immediate numbers the next month, the next week, that type of thing. But over time, when you've poured yourself into it, when you've given yourself to the process, when you've said, I submit to the process, I submit to God's work in this group, you see the results. And so for me, I in almost 4 years, so I've been with the group almost 4 years, I've missed one time and it was unavoidable. So I set it aside. It's in my calendar. It's a recurring event every single month. I do not miss because it's extremely important for a couple of reasons. One is what I get out of it, but then what I can offer to the group. And that's not me saying I think I have something to offer. I just know that in order for the group to work, everybody has to have that same commitment. And so for me, it's just extremely important. The financial piece, if you're pouring yourself into it, the finances work themselves out. It is not an issue. If you've decided to join and you see the price tag, and for that, for me, it's just an investment worth your time. It's like an IRA on steroids. So.
Thanks, Jay. Really appreciate it, and I appreciate your support of C12.
Yep, no problem.
I'm going to get back to sharing my screen a little bit here. So we had Sonia, we had Jay. Give me a second here. So Mike talked a little bit about the financial commitment. So to give a little background, the pricing does vary by market. So Chris and I are different markets, and every market's a little different. It is a sliding scale based on your annual revenue. There's a one-time registration fee, and then the monthly fee, which Mike talked about. The national average is around $1,000 or $1,200 a month. To give you a little background, there's no long-term contract, no long-term commitment. So we're accountable to you. So with that, I'd like to take the time, and if you have any questions, then we still have Mike on the line here to take advantage of that and see if you have any questions for us. Raise your hand or...
I love tough questions. I'll have Sonia answer all those.
I will say, if I may just say something on the financial, just the one resource that Chris was able to find for me. I know we talked about fees being 10 to 15,000. I can tell you that by the one transaction and communication and the services they provided us, they saved us from more than $10,000 to $15,000 in damages. So that was really, really cool. Like Roy said, the finances work itself out. It's really amazing.
It's actually it's the easiest part of the proposition is to return the value, because if you think about you run a business, to slightly improve performance, reduce errors, mitigate risks, like Sonny mentioned. If you got large teams, it's almost predicted, like based on your industry. I'm spoiled that I get to see hundreds and hundreds of case studies every year, and so I can almost, based upon the business you're in, go, okay, so turnover typically drops down, retention, employee. In fact, we just had a 5-year longitudinal study on the impact of people living out this kind of C12 strategy in diverse companies, looking at about, I think it was a basket of 39 companies, and there was like a 35% employee engagement advantage over even other faith-based organizations. And so we are really serious about optimizing the whole business, and it just depends on which one you're in. I'd love to hear, if you don't have questions, careful, I'll start asking you questions. So I'm looking at, there's Todd's and Ted's and Greg's and Lars on here, and Graham. I'd love to hear what you guys heard that you liked, like why you were here. So you don't initiate, I'm going to put you on the defense.
Unmute.
Todd Hanson. What you got, Todd?
All right, unmuted. Hey, I'm curious. First of all, great presentation. Some wonderful story sharing. I'm curious as to the community that is created among a C12 group. Do you find that they are connecting between monthly meetings, that they develop friendships, that they're sharing best practices, that kind of stuff? I'm just kind of curious whether that normally happens and what's the relative value that you see in that.
May I answer that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Todd, thanks for being on today. So I'll just give you an example. We just had a person who started our group, was the first member, founding member of our group in the tri-state, just retired. So he retired off the group, but he has committed to seeing every single person in the group and staying connected. He and I see each other every single month. And it's invaluable. I mean, the guy has experience that I can never replicate. And he has been a spiritual mentor. He's been a business. I mean, his business savvy is second to none. Contacts, unbelievable. So absolutely, the camaraderie and the connections among the group is definitely a big part of what you get and what you see. Yeah.
I think I just want to add something here, not that you were alluding to that at all, but C12 is a non-solicitation group. So the reason to get into C12 isn't necessarily to build contacts or increase networks. That happens naturally, and it happens as a part of how you can help and assist each other get better. So that is an important point. Mike, you.
Well, if I can add just to Todd as a testimony. So I joined as a member 10 years ago. 5 years ago, we did our family will, and my wife and I did an honest look at, we had, a lot of family in our will around things like guardianship for our kids and such, and powers of attorney. And we went, who are the people we most trust that are living lives that we most want our kids shaped by, that we most trust to make decisions? And frankly, we redid our whole will to where my kids are going to one C12 member, my medical power of attorney is another C12 member, my will became the people in my group, because honestly, I went, who I've come to trust their decision making and with them understanding, well, I love my family and things can go to them, but when it comes to helping decisions, that's what I put in. So if you want to talk about where's that relationship go, my will is all the people in my C12 group. So that may be a little bit more intense. Sonia may not be there yet, but that's a personal testimony.
Cool. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I unmuted. Hey, this is Lars. Sorry, I was in another meeting. I was 5 minutes late. I'm in a BNI meeting, and Ted is as well. And just to make sure this is an exclusive, you own the seat kind of a meeting, and you don't compete outside of that with other referral networks. Is this a conflict with a referral network where I hold an exclusive seat, or no, it's not? Okay.
But to Chris's point, Lars, so a number of members, if they run companies that have particularly consumer goods or consumer services, will have maybe a BNI or a chamber or other things you're involved in. By no means do we say this is the only group you can be in. You can't go to that. This is just very different than that. So in this, there's not selling to one another, and it's very confidential. And there's no competitors in our group. So similar, for Jay Jacobs, or if with Sonia, there's not going to be another radio station in her group. There's not going to be another restaurant in her group.
Okay. And I saw flashing across the screen 10 employees minimum or something like that. So I am just a one-man business owner. I guess then I'm not in that under the requirements of the group. Is that correct, or?
That's correct. And so it'd be worth talking to whichever chairs in your market in terms of, unless you're in a rapid growth spot and you had or pivoting or something. But generally, our model is for established businesses with teams. So a lot of our work is going to be, okay, how do you go back to your team and have them implement this? How are you going to grow your head of sales to deal with this?
Gotcha. Perfect. Okay, I understand. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other questions? Hearing none. I'm going to share my screen again. theoretically. There we go. We kind of covered that. You want to do this, Chris?
Yeah, so it's kind of those next steps. So in Ron's tri-state area, he has a meeting coming up on Thursday this week, and then in November on the 12th. So here's his contact information if you don't have it already. I know he's on LinkedIn. You may have his email already, but just wanted to give you an opportunity to write down some of his information. And for myself, I have an upcoming meeting on October 15th and then November 19th, and there's my contact information. The next step, if you're very interested in this, is to have a conversation with Ron or myself. What we will do at that point in time is say, if this is still in something that you want to do, if you do qualify, the opportunity to experience a meeting is invaluable. Because I can tell you, Ron can tell you what you get out of the meeting, and it may be a portion of it, but what you experience at the meeting, and I think Sonia and Jay would say this, is unique and different each and every time. And what you find valuable, I can't tell you. So we do offer, come to a meeting one time with the intent of, hey, I'm going to determine at the end of this meeting if I want to join or not. But we do offer that as a complimentary opportunity for you to experience a meeting. So meeting once a month, the 8th, the 12th for Ron, and the 12th, 19th for myself.
So that brings us kind of to the next step, or what's next, as Chris said and alluded to. I do kind of going to do this via a poll, just so that you can kind of respond. I'm going to launch a poll here, and just you get to choose what you'd like to do and respond back, and Chris or I will get in touch with you. And even if it's, not interested in this time, we'd still like to get together at some point and get to know you a little bit. And you may not be interested this time, but maybe at a later date it makes sense. So take a minute and please respond to the poll.
And I think if I'm just looking through that poll, I know someone who might be interested. That's an extremely valuable opportunity. Maybe this isn't right for you, or maybe it is right for you, and you know other people who might be interested in. I think, Mike, it may have actually been you that said when you were a chair, one of your greatest referral sources was somebody who considered themselves an atheist. And C12 wasn't right for them, but they knew a bunch of Christian business owners that this would be great for. So if you do know somebody that may be interested in learning that there is a group like this in that tri-state area or in Northeast Wisconsin, please let us know.
Chris, can I make a comment on that?
Yeah, yes, please.
Just from somebody who didn't know what C12 was, the little bit that I had heard of and my preconceived notions, what I thought I was going to get when I went to visit was, this is more of a Christian faith-based topics. And I'm like, do I need that? I'm involved in youth group, women's ministry, I'm leading this and that. Do I need to be part of that? Only to go and be a guest and to witness and realize, and now again, 12 months, and Jay could probably speak more to that. The curriculum is amazing. It's very business focused. I mean, we are going to get down and dirty, dissect, put back together, analyze, reflect things when it comes to business, and we do provide you the tools. The best part about it is that it does come from that biblical worldview. It's reminding us, right, that people who work with us and for us are humans, and that we are to love God and love people. So using the ministry aspect inside of things. So I'm not sure where you are all at and what you're thinking this is going to be, but I would highly encourage you to at least be a guest and visit once to understand it for yourself.
Great. Thank you for that, Sonia. All right. Anything else? Any other questions, comments? We're getting right to the top of the hour, so we want to make sure that we are respectful of that time.